This is Lenny Farlee, Purdue Extension Forester, and this is a Woodland Management Moment. In this Woodland Management Moment, we're going to talk about the influence of a topographic characteristic that we find on the landscape, and that's called aspect. Now, aspect is the direction that a slope faces, and it has some significant implications for how dry or moist that site may be, and therefore what tree species may do best on that site. And so we're looking at a slope that has an aspect of west facing. And so this is a west facing slope. It's getting sunlight in the afternoon. And of course we have our warmest temperatures during the day, typically in the afternoon. And so we've got sunlight exposure, warmer temperatures. The end result is these sites that face west have a tendency to be warmer and also drier than some other sites. And this is actually evidenced by the fact that we've had some snowfall here in Tippecanoe County. And we've still got snow down in the valley where it's somewhat protected and shaded from direct sunlight. But up on that west-facing slope, much of the snow has been melted. Now we can contrast that with what's happening in the valley, where we don't have much direct sunlight exposure, and in particular what's happening over here on this east-facing slope. So an east-facing aspect on this slope. Now, obviously, this gets sunlight in the morning, but we have the coolest temperatures in the morning. And so even though we have direct sunlight exposure, we don't have high temperatures. And so the snow has been preserved on these east-facing slopes because of that. And that is typical actually throughout the year. East-facing slopes have a tendency to be cooler and moister than west-facing slopes because when they do get sunlight exposure, it is during the coolest part of the day. And that has a direct implication on what species of trees typically do best on these sites. So east-facing slopes, we can have a wide variety of tree species because we have pretty good soil moisture and good growing conditions, less stress on a wide variety of trees. And so oftentimes those trees that can grow fastest have the advantage on these sites. Now we come around to the west-facing slope, and particularly on the upper parts of this slope, we may be quite a bit drier and in fact have drouthy conditions during part of the year, and that will favor species that maybe don't grow as fast, but have really good root systems and can tolerate some drought, things like oak and hickory. And so thinking about the characteristics of the sites on your property and what tree species may do best on those locations helps you make some good management decisions in terms of what's going to respond best to management. Now, we also think about north and south-facing slopes, and the same conditions exist. And so we would expect to see very similar conditions on north-facing slopes because since our sun is in the southern horizon, they tend to not get a lot of direct sunlight. So they stay cooler and moister. Where south-facing slopes, very similar to our west-facing slopes, will get sunlight through most of the day, and particularly later in the day when we have the highest temperatures and therefore tend to be much drier. So looking at your property, thinking about the aspect on the slopes you have will help you think about what trees maybe will respond best to management in those locations.